Right, we need to have a little bit of order to this so that it is useful.
What about? I've got a good idea. What about beginning, middle, and end?
No.
No? Does that not
No.
work for you, Pete?
No.
Hip.
That's far too logical.
Middle,
and
end,
ankle.
beginning.
That's far too logical. We've got about 45 minutes, and I need to have a chat with you both about touring.
Right.
Right? So we've covered a variety of different topics with young Stephen, and last night we had David Marsden from the Britpop show.
Splendid chap.
Splendid chap. Gave us an absolute roasting because we referred to it as the Britpop Revival podcast, which is not his. That's something completely different. So sorry about that, David.
What did you call it? What is it? It's just the Britpop show, isn't it?
I think so, yeah. We're plugging him too much now. He's had one episode and he's getting more plug. I'm going to edit this out. One of the things that me and Steve were having some conversations about a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, do you know what? Let's not talk about that. I'm going to talk about that with Ali and Alex, because I remember when we were putting the book and stuff together, we had some very good stories and chinwags about this. We have to imagine that the general population that have listened to lots of music and been to lots of gigs are complete Luddites on the process of being in a band. They just absorb what you guys put out. They don't know what goes on behind the scenes. And you've both toured extensively over the years. So I want to try and unpack that a little bit. And Alex, I know you've done even more touring than young Alistair. When did you let's go right back to the beginning. What was the first tour that you did, Alex, where you packed up your little bag and then you went off on the road and you didn't come back until the tour was over?
The first proper tour I did was supporting Jules Holland for his autumnal Christmas 1996 UK tour with a singer called Bianca Kinnan, Irish singer, brilliant, really good, but the record company had her singing sort of ballads like Mariah Carey, and she should have been just rocking like a nutter, which, like she is, it's like she's got, an incredible voice. But for some reason, the record company wanted her to do, Mariah Carey ballads. But you start knocking into some Aretha Franklin, and she'd just start ripping it to pieces. It's like, oh, maybe we should be doing more of that. But anyway, so that was like 2.5 months, maybe a bit more than that. October, November, December of 96. And that was just around the UK. But we did get to play the Albert Hall, which was quite nice.
He's pulled out the big guns early. What was your first tour, Alex? Oh, the Royal Albert
actually,
Hall.
I'd already played in the Albert Hall with the Barnet School's brass band. So beat that if you will. You can't,
so your second time playing the Royal Albert Hall.
My second and last
tour.
time playing the Albert Hall. Yeah, I've not been back. Not to perform, just to watch other people.
Jesus.
But yeah, that was a good little tour.
Ali beat the Royal Albert Hall.
Albert Hall, Bolton?
No, there was a venue that we played in Camden back along in the day. In fact, the gig, it was set to be a really, really good gig. This was right before Alex joined, and I can't remember the venue. But it was one of those old Victorian, cool venues. It was full. It was well promoted. It was kind of, I think it might have even been sort of linked into radio. And Nigel's bass amp at that time, Nigel was playing the bass prior to Alex coming in, and his amp kept going down, and we kind of lost momentum. And that was a great gig, but nothing like the Albert Hall. Again, like Alex, I've been there to see other people play, but I haven't played there.
Ali, that was Alex's first tour.
Yeah, you wait till you hear what I did with Il Divo.
Well, hold on. Ali's first tour was probably back of the, what was the pub in South Peverton? The Foresters.
The Foresters or the Farmer's Arms or something.
Farmer's Arms.
But when
Alex, when you had to kind of like, pack up and go on tour as a young fella, is that like the greatest thing ever for a musician?
It was just quite unusual. It's a bit similar to sort of going to college and, you get a lift there from your mum or your dad. You unpack all your stuff. You're in your new place where you're living. They then go, and then the door shuts, and it's like, right, what do I do now? But yeah, I've got to cook. I've got to do my washing. You've got to do everything. And the same on tour. It's like, I'm not going to be sleeping in my bed for weeks and weeks. They're probably, because it was a UK tour, there were probably a couple of nights off here and there where we got home and that. I can't remember, to be honest. But I remember just thinking, yeah, we went from one place and then to another place and then to another place. And it was, oh, yeah, this is pretty cool. I could get used to this. And I do remember tucking into the Jules Holland's rider and immediately getting cut down. It's like, that's not for you. I mean, it's like, it was my first day or second day. It was like, I had no idea that, you know, if it says Jules Holland, it's for their band. It's not for the support act, you know. So it was like, I immediately got shot down in flames. It was like, oh, sorry, I didn't know. And it was like, any idea if there's any food for us? It was like, no idea. Go, where's your room? You know, I can't really remember whether we had a rider.
Can we ask if you're...
Well, Jules's was massive, you know, because
let's do this.
Because it's so big.
Fuck it, let's do it. Let's unpack Jules Holland's rider. What was
Well,
in
it was
there?
huge. I don't know. It was just like a table full of food. I mean, how many people are in his big band? It's like, it's got to be 15, 20, isn't it? I mean, he's got BVs, massive horn, rhythm section, his brother on organ. So there must have been food for sort of 20 on a daily basis.
And they couldn't even allow you a little more.
But no, but that's it. That's what it is. That's what touring is. And on that very first day, I remember Don Airy, who was playing keyboards, he was the MD, and him saying, this is right, Alex, this is what touring is all about. On day one, you'll say, oh, look, let's call Brian. Brian likes ketchup, doesn't he? He's got a lot of ketchup. And on the last day of the tour, you'll be going, that having ketchup again. That is touring.
I love that. Do you get to feed into the rider?
Well, you have to have your own rider. So
Right.
Again, I cannot remember whether we had a support band rider or not, or whether we would just, because I mean, we were driving ourselves, so we had a car and a transit van with the gear in the back, you know, like any normal band sort of starting out. And so we would stop at pubs up and down the country for lunch on the way to the next gig. And yeah, I mean, I do remember sort of eating out a lot. So I'm guessing that a lot of the time we probably didn't have a rider.
I'm really disappointed with this idea of food on a rider. I just assumed it was like drugs, booze, and...
Well, I do remember, again, on that very first tour, I do remember one night or one day, I spent the whole day in bed because I had sort of the flu, more or less. And I managed to drag myself out of the hotel, got to the gig, and I think I had 2 large brandies before going on stage. Now, we were the support, so we were probably paying for 30, 35 minutes. 2 sort of large brandies, did the gig. At the end of the gig, I was absolutely fine. No hint of any illness. So the concentration on the gig, plus a little bit of brandy, just totally killed all the germs, and the adrenaline just got rid of everything. And,
I think it's adrenaline.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and I mean, obviously the booze is going to kill certain bacteria. And then just the focus of playing the music, somehow you forget that you're ill. And so at the end of the half an hour, 35 minutes, I walked off stage absolutely normal and fine. So like if you're ill, just go on tour
with Ali and Alex.
Yeah, it's all free. This is free information.
What was the first Electrasy gig back the year before last? What was that venue?
The one in Cheltenham.
Yeah, what's it called?
The one in Cheltenham was the Frog and Fiddle.
Fiddle.
Is that right?
So that gig.
Oh, that was with Nige, wasn't it? Nige had the same as me.
We had 3 days rehearsals, didn't we, prior to it? And Nige was bent over at 45 degrees like an old man. He had a problem with his lower back.
He had the brace on as well. Too much bowling, too much fast bowling.
Yeah, take the skinheads bowling. And no, he was, but he was absolutely, you know, he had real problems, and it had been going on for years, I think. And we did the gig, and I remember he came off and he was talking with Nigel Clark from Dodgy, and I just stood back and I looked at him. I went, "Nige, you're back," and he was just old Nige. He was stood up. He'd gone from 6'2" back up to 6'6", and he was like, hands on him. I was like, "Nige, you're back." He went, "Well, yeah. Oh, it must be the adrenaline," and that was it. And it just carried on talking, full of beans. Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Ali, when you and Steve and Mick and everybody started kind of gigging around, did you tour or did you just gig?
We just gigged, because we were all at school or college, or, well, actually, when we left school, we didn't all really attend that much college that we should have done. No, we just went out, and we, you know, everything was kind of... Exeter as a city from where we were in Dorset was still only an hour and a half away. So we just we toured in the respect of, we were centered around sort of Sherborne, and then we just went out and played all over the place.
What's the most exciting kind of booking in the odd date every now and again? I'm talking about when you're getting going as well, and then I want to get into what it's like when you've been signed and then you're doing serious tours, then you're in America. We're going to get to that. When you're just starting out, both of you in bands, oh, we've got a gig booked this weekend. Oh, that's nice. Or is it way more exciting when you've gone, fuck, we've got like 10 lined up? So you've got like dominoes in front of you. Is that like or am I just kind of romanticizing life in a band?
No, I don't know about Alex. He's probably sick to the eye tooth of touring. But when we did that last year,
yeah,
it was exciting looking forwards to it. There were elements of it which weren't great.
Stairs.
Stairs or
how many gigs
your own
up?
gear.
Yeah, how many gigs can we do up at least one flight of stairs?
But
preferably
it was
two.
Funny.
Yeah.
No, it was, touring was fun. And we toured extensively here. And then when we went to the States as well with Alex, we toured pretty extensively with American band Fuel.
Finger 11.
Finger 11.
Well, Sound of Urchin.
Because just after you were signed, so that year, like 97, I think it was, 98, Electrasy did like 300 gigs in a year or something, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, I think it was 167.
Was it?
See, when I joined the band, one of the reasons, not the main reason, but I'd say maybe second, was that Nige said we did 167 gigs last year, and we had 168 curries.
Yeah,
and I thought this is the band for me. I need some of this. Not so much the music. Don't worry about that. I mean, it's great, but if I'm going to get a ratio of 1.001 curries per gig, I'm in. But maths is slightly out there. But anyway, at least one curry a gig.
Nigel, correct.
That's the greatest job interview of all time. Okay, according to Wikipedia in my hand right now, 1998, 180 shows.
All right.
So all the gigs, but then you have TFI and all that kind of stuff on top, during that period as well. That's a lot of shows.
Yeah, we toured with a band called Root Juice. They were great. They were quite popular in the West Country. But yeah, we toured and did all the Firkin pubs. Yeah, it was.
Didn't you used to support, or rather, didn't you used to have a little support band from the West Country called Muse? Don't know what happened to them.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to them. I think they slipped through the net, much like us. Yeah, we did a few shows with them. They opened up for us at that point. I remember seeing them in Exeter, thinking, fuck me, they're really, really good. And apparently we did other gigs with them, but I don't remember those. So, but yeah, we did.
Were they better than the band that opened for you in Exeter last year?
No one is better than them.
No.
We'll move on from that. Just talk me through the logistics of doing 180 gigs in 1 year. You must have been exhausted. That is like more than a tour. That is like a marathon.
Yeah, but I don't. You're not tired, but you don't do anything else. You got Alan Robertson was looking after us, so he was driving. The riders were organised. He was kind of old school, so he came from he used to look after UB40, and then he came to looking after us. So
and Queen.
Yeah, and Freddie Mercury, I think he was his sort of personal security guy, and so he kind of brought that level of
expenditure.
Or yes, expenditure, definitely that. But the record company just kept chucking money at it. But yeah, we toured round. We didn't do anything during the day. I mean, I would get up, Nigel would get up and run, and that was about it. But we would normally, what we used to do is we used to stay for a couple of weeks in travel lodges, and then we would bank the money that was allowed for the hotel, which was a nicer hotel. And then we used to go, when we hit a big city, we would go and swank it up at a Hilton or one of the sort of high levels, and we just have open bar all night, and that's how pretty much most of that tour budget got spent. So, but yeah, no, it was great. It was a lot of fun. It was really, really good.
All right, so I've got another one for both of you, actually, Alex as well, because I mean, we're going to get to it. You've done tours outside of Electrasy with some crazy acts. What about the monotony of playing the same songs over and over again on many, many nights? Does that ever get tiresome for a musician?
It entirely depends on what you're playing,
right?
And with whom.
Okay.
So I've done 2 theatre tours. Did the Tonight's the Night Rod Stewart musical, which was written by Ben Elton after We Will Rock You, and it was the story that he'd discussed with Brian and Rog to use to make We Will Rock You 2. But then they didn't need it because We Will Rock You just ran and ran. So that Elton used the script and turned it into a Rod Stewart musical. And, you know, we were doing on that one, normally in the West End, you're doing 8 shows a week. So that gets very monotonous. It doesn't matter what you're playing if you're doing the same show 8 times a week. And the problem with the theatre is, even though it's musical theatre, it's theatre, not music. Like, that's the emphasis, because the people on stage are actors and actresses that can sing, more or less, and they're not musicians, so they don't like it if a drummer goes and puts in another. I didn't know where the downbeat was. Well, you know, it came in after 4 like it always does. But, you know, if someone goes and plays a note, one whole note that they're not used to, it can put them off.
Right.
You know, so it can get a bit tedious when you've got actors and actresses going,
Jesus
I want
Christ.
it the same, exactly the same every night. So you're playing exactly the same stuff 8 times a week. Now you do that for a
sounds
month.
horrible.
Do that a month. Do that for 2 months. If you're in Mamma Mia, you've been doing that for 26 years.
God.
You know, and I think in Mamma Mia, there's one original band member still in the band. And I mean,
Insane.
he's definitely not done 8 shows a week for 26 years, but he's probably done several thousand shows, you know.
But is the other thing, so that what you've just described is basically sitting in a little dark pit at the front of the stage,
Mm-hmm.
at
Under the
Palladium or
stage
whatever
normally.
it is, like night after night after night. Is the excitement for both of you doing a gig, it was either brilliant, mediocre, or maybe you had a shit night or whatever, and then hopping to the next town? Is that the cool bit? So you're like, well, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, because it could be a completely dead audience, or it could be the best audience we've ever played to.
Yeah, I mean, what's different about playing in a band if it's your own music is, unless one person in the band has written everything and is dictating exactly how he or she wants it. I mean, you can you play how you feel that night, and if you put in a bit extra, you know, if everyone looks around and sort of gives you oh, that was good, then you keep that in. You know, if you try something and everyone looks around and laughs, you know, you forget that sharpish for tomorrow. But I mean, a big thing is just how well you get on with the people that you're working with, because I've done most of my touring, or, you know, definitely the biggest part of the touring that I've done has been with at least one person that I just cannot stand. I'm not going to name names, but you know, if someone is getting on your tits, like I said earlier, you know, is that again? You know, if you're working with someone who opens their mouth and you just want to punch it, that's not going to be a happy 6 months. You know, if you're seeing this person every day for 6 months and then having to stand on stage with that person and pretend to sort of be pally with that person and, well, aren't we having a great time? It can get tiresome pretty quickly. And then also, if you're a jobbing muso, chances are you're not playing music that you've had any hand in writing or arranging. And it may also be like music that is just utterly boring. You know, it might be very well paid. Like, for example, I did the first 2 years of Il Divo's touring career. So we went around the world twice: Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Far East, all round Europe, all round America and Canada, South America. You know, there's not many places that we didn't play. 5-star hotels, good money, music, absolutely no reward.
Right.
You know, especially for the bass, you know, because really it's 4 opera singers with an orchestra and an acoustic guitar and a piano. And then the last 8 bars for the grand finale of the tune, the drums and bass come in just to finish it off. So I'm just standing there for 3.5 minutes looking like a bouncer wearing an Armani suit. The only difference that makes me not look like a bouncer, other than not being very hard, is that I'm wearing a bass guitar.
Did the money even make it worth doing, or did you?
Oh, the money was, those first 2 years, I've never earned as much money as a jobbing muso, because it was in the days, it was their first tour, so they didn't know how much to pay a musician. So when the MD said how much it was, they went, oh, okay. You know, from their point of view, they're playing big theatres that then later on, when we came to the UK, we were playing Wembley Arena, SEC in Glasgow, all the big arenas.
The money's there. The money's in the budget.
There was shitloads of money, but normally that doesn't filter down to the jobbing musos. You know, it will go to the name on the ticket and then Live Nation or whoever's putting the gig on.
What was Il Divo's rider?
Well, we had plenty of booze on our rider. You'll be glad to know. I'm sure there was. I think it was like for the band. I mean, I don't know what the lads had, but we will have had several bottles of wine, a couple of bottles of spirits. Because how many? Oh no, actually, how many were we? We were only 5. There were only 5 of us, so maybe it was less. I might be getting confused with the Tom Jones rider, which was almost entirely alcohol because there was a brass section, so obviously that's a bottle of spirits each for them. I mean, it was sort of fairly similar to what we used to do, a bottle of vodka between 3 of us, but we only ever played for 35 minutes. So it was like by the time it had fully kicked in, we were off.
You were off stage,
topping up. So, I'm going to fall off the front of the stage. Right, finish, so get off.
You're talking about the Electrasy tours now. Let's just go for it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Alex, let's start where you joined. So you joined after the Beautiful Insane and the record label dropping, and then Clive.
Yeah, basically, In Here We Fall had been demoed.
Yeah.
And the new record contract had been signed. So I joined. Basically, the idea was that they didn't want to play with sequenced bass or pre-recorded bass. So initially, I was just coming in simply to play live. We spent a week at Small World in Yeovil. And I remember at the end of the week, I think Ali just went, "Oh, do you want to just join the band?" And it was like, "Well, what are we doing?" "Well, we're going to go to LA and make a record." And it was like, "Oh, yeah, all right." And that was it.
Yeah.
That was literally it. I mean, the audition was hilarious as well. I mean, we all met down in Hackney.
Yeah.
The lads, Ali and Nige, picked me up from Tottenham. I was working for Haringey Mencap.
That's right.
I had the world's stupidest haircut that you can see online if you want to see it.
You had a green parka and you had your bass and you came out, it was pissing down. And I saw him come out and I went,
"He's one of us."
He's one of us.
Yeah. Look,
he's working at Mencap. He looks like an absolute, thing.
He'll be able to handle Steve.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And I remember we played Morning Afterglow and it was like basically coming in after the funny, where the band comes in. It's like it's not a 4-beat.
4 on the offbeat.
Yeah. And so that was like one thing. And I mean, I'd not heard any music. So it was like, just come down for a play. And I think we sort of tried to learn 2 or 3 songs. And it was just like, "Right, Paul, can he play in time?" "Yeah, he can play in time." "All right, let's have a week in Small World." And at the end of that week, it was like, "Right, we're going to the States." And then I think we did one gig in Providence, Rhode Island, didn't we? We played at...
We did one in Yeovil to no one.
Oh, yeah. No, we did the snooker club in Yeovil. The
and
night
one in
that Metallica tribute act were playing Mortallica or something. And so there was no one saw the first gig. And then we played the Plume. And that was rammed. And that was great.
Well, hold on. I was at the snooker club.
Were you?
Were you?
Yeah, I was
in 99.
Were you there?
Yeah, right.
99. I was there. My twin brother was with me. My mate Neil was with us. Yeah, I saw you at the snooker club in 99. We didn't do the Plume though, so we couldn't get into the Plume because that was the silly one where.
Right.
I went. Yeah, it's in the book. I couldn't get in. We were too drunk, so they wouldn't let us into the Plume.
Oh yeah. Well, the first gig in the States was a big one in Providence, wasn't it?
It was.
For the university where we'd been at number 1 for the whole year or whatever it was.
That's right.
And then we did the album In Here We Fall, and then there wasn't any touring for ages because I remember thinking, right, we're up and running now and going back to the UK because I'd come in on a visa that was a single entry.
Yeah.
So I needed to get I think it was a P1, so I could go backwards and forwards at will. And it was like we didn't go back until the summer of 2000 because the record company was like, "Well, we're going to release the album in September or whatever." And Ali and Nige did a tour of just the 2 of them for radio promotion. And I can't even remember where we started touring.
Ali,
whether it was
just to flip over to Ali, that tour in America when you got over there and you'd done the deal and you were out of the blocks. That was the first foreign tour that you'd done. You must have been over the moon.
Yeah, America was something to look forwards to, definitely. And I think there was definitely a sense, I think around 96, even though we'd signed and we were doing a record, that the whole the lay of like how music was going was changing. You could see it, like the sort of boy bands were getting more sort of, they were having a lot more success, and you could just tell that the kind of Britpop thing was already starting to fizzle out, even as early as 96 and 97. I do sense it. I remember it.
Well, 97 was when the Spice Girls hit.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's a good sign.
Yeah.
But funnily enough, because I auditioned October 99, and that same week I was asked to audition for 5, and I've noticed that 5 are back this week.
God.
So that's quite amusing that I could have joined that band, but just as a jobbing muso.
Well, not in the band.
No, it wouldn't have been. No. It was just a gig, you know. And it was like, do you want to play for a boy band or do you want to join a real band? So it's like, yeah, I know. And also,
We're glad you joined the real band.
I remember getting the cassette. Like, I got a cassette of all the stuff from In Here We Fall. So this is the new album. This is what we're learning. I think everyone in the band was sick of the old set because after 180 gigs or whatever,
yeah,
it was like, I want to play something different. So no one was looking to play any of the old stuff other than Angel and Morning Afterglow because they were going on to In Here We Fall. And I just remember getting to Rocket Man and just going, Jesus Christ, I need to be in this band. You know, I've not heard a song as good as this for years.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm going to be in this band, you know, so it was like, yeah, there was never any question, you know, because there was, you know, In Here We Fall was very varied and some of it like nothing to do but get stoned. And there were a couple of others that was like, oh, you know, I'm not that fussed about those. But, you know, just Rocket Man alone, I would have joined the band, you know.
Yeah.
And then also, you know, just playing in a room with big amps, loud, and with Paul playing the drums. Just he's such a good drummer that it was like, well, my job is easy peasy. I can just concentrate on giving it 101%, and I don't have to worry about someone slowing down or speeding up because Paul did everything with a click. Because it also used to send sequencing information to Jim, so he could just press a note down on the keyboard and go bang on in time. And so it was amazing that all these things. And Nige is just absolutely straight down the middle on it. So me, Paul, and Nige together with synths going, it was just like the most tight thing I'd ever sort of been involved in. And with the band that I'd been in before, which was just a, you know, band with some mates and we never got anywhere. I'd been really tight as well, but having the click going, you could just tell that there was no wavering. You always played the song at the right tempo because some songs you might not realize, but if you play it slightly fast or slightly slow, it just doesn't work. You know, it has to be exactly at a certain speed for it to do what it does. So that was the great thing. There was never any sort of, oh, we played that one a bit fast, you know, or that was a bit slow tonight. It was always just bang on, and you could just therefore head down and go for it.
You have to remember as well, Pete, that they're modelers, amps, that digital thing didn't exist. So, you know, if you were that sort of band, which we were, you had a 4x12 each side of the stage, cranked 50, 100-watt head. Alex has got, a 500 or 1,000-watt Ampeg bass head. Everything's just turned up right to that sweet spot of where a valve amp just comes to life. And that's how we played. So there was no sort of like in-ears or keep it down. Even the sound, we never went anywhere where the guys went, ooh, God, you're too loud. Do you think I'm really struggling to get the sound right out front? We just turned sound check, bang, 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 the volumes that we played at, and then away we go. I mean, these days, they'd have a baby about that. You know, they'd be like, oh, God, no, that's so loud. But yeah, back then it was just a different beast altogether, really.
Yeah, proper.
But then, especially in the States, I do remember being quite surprised about arriving in New York and there not really being any scene that was noticeable. And that was like, oh, this is a bit like London, although obviously London's at that time still had all the Camden venues and stuff. But we'd been round the States and it was like all these venues were great, you know, dingy, dirty, sticky floored. You know, when we were playing with the Sound of Urchin, it was like a strip club that at 5 o'clock turned into a venue and then everyone turned up from school and it was packed. You know, we were playing at sort of 5:30, 6 o'clock to a bunch of sort of high school kids.
Who were you touring with in the US? It was
the Sound of Urchin. Well, we toured with a few different people. We did a few gigs early on with the Sound of Urchin, and they were great fun. I mean, we got on really well with them, and I'd say we got on with them better than anyone else. Buckcherry didn't want anything to do with us. Fuel were great. Finger 11 were great. And then we just used to do gigs randomly. We did 12 Rods. They were great, but again, they're a little bit standoffish. And, because there's the rivalry and who are these guys who don't know who you are, as opposed to everyone just sort of being really happy and friendly. A lot of the time it was...
Sorry, let me just interrupt there. I'm really interested in this, actually. Who puts the bands together for a tour?
No idea.
I think our management, there were things used to get sort of tossed up, how Fuel came about. But I think, stuff went to radio, people started playing and rotating at alternative radio, which was an odd one because you had bands like Limp Bizkit and Slipknot. They were the flavour at that time. And then we're putting Morning Afterglow out. But it started getting heavy rotation at alternative radio. So then suddenly our manager, Corey Wagner's coming along going, I've got you a gig with Fuel,
Yeah, I think
you're going to go do their tour, which was awesome.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how the Sound of Urchin came along. I think when we toured with them, they'd had their first EP out. We probably hadn't put the album out yet, so it was basically 2 or 3 bands that were all just trying, just getting going. So they were touring around in one transit with all their gear in it, more or less the same as us, and they were just fucking funny.
Was it, were you all absolute professional or was it fucking carnage?
It was organised
50-50.
Chaos. Yeah.
Was it?
We always played, like we had our chops down, but I think when you're that age, but outside of that, there was all sorts of dramas in
Spokane.
Yeah. God, I mean, just like some great stories, but it was always like, there was never like, I must get to bed because we're going to, we've got somewhere else in Northern California tomorrow that's really important. We got a gig and that's really, we must be straight for that. Or we had the MTV interview, didn't we? Do you remember? So we did a gig in Portland, Oregon, and Alex and I sort of went on a...
Well, no, it was Spokane. It was Spokane,
Was it
Washington.
Spokane?
Yeah.
Oh, it was. Okay.
They filmed the gig, which a little bit of that went on MTV News, and they must have filmed at least 1 or 2 full songs. So, I mean, I don't know where that footage is. I mean, I remember Chanty had a video, and I can't remember what it was from or whether it was professionally
He was our tour
done.
manager there, yeah.
Yeah, sound engineer and just general making everything happen. And then I remember sort of years later sort of asking him about it, and he was like, oh, no, I think I chucked that away. It was like, oh, that was the only video that we've, obviously it's before. Obviously, we could have all video. I mean, Steve used to video the gigs, didn't he, on...
Yeah.
But the sound, it was always just filmed on stage. So the sound would have been not great. But then we've got a couple of live recordings live in North Virginia or something, which was one of the Fuel gigs. And I can't remember how we recorded it. I think maybe Chanty just recorded something onto a DAT from the front of house. So we've got that recording. But
the other thing that's fascinating about what you've just said, though, when you're going like, oh, we haven't got any footage or it got thrown away or Steve's got a bag of tapes or whatever that we're going to have to go through at some point. Isn't it amazing, though, that you could go on tour around America and you haven't got, a couple of hundred or more young idiots pointing one of these at you? Filming absolutely everything. Everyone on that tour, from band, you could do whatever you want behind the scenes because no one's going to stick a camera in your face and film you doing whatever you're doing as a band.
I mean, I'm so glad that
stage, everyone's focused on what you're doing.
Yeah. No, I'm glad because some of the embarrassing things that would be available to watch. If you do successfully get all of Steve's DV tapes, there'll be plenty of stuff that will be very cringy, just personally, just going, oh my God, what was I, because back then, personally for me, it's like I had a completely different outlook as to what I was doing, why I was doing it, as to like the tour we did last summer is completely and totally doing it for different reasons. And there's no ego involved. There's no, look at me, I think we're doing this amazing thing. It's just like, I want to stand in a room with my friends and make this noise that only we can make.
Yeah.
And again, that's something that's very different from tour to tour. There's something about working with Electrasy that is better than anything I've ever done on one level, because there's something about the combination of the five of us in a room that you don't get when you just chuck a bunch of session guys together. I mean, sometimes you can, but generally there's nothing, you can't replace the sort of playing with the same people night in, night out to develop a sound.
Yeah.
And
but it's one element of being the band, like just standing in a room and playing, and then there's so much else that goes into actually just getting to that point where you stand in a room and play together, and we're all so involved with doing that, and that is the nice thing of being a band, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, it's just awesome.
Is that the bit that you all work towards, though? You've written, played, jammed, created, got the thing down, then you go and you play it to an audience.
The seed is definitely, for me, yeah, it's like, because ultimately that's where, you know, people will end up, whether they buy it, is if you're a band, you want to go and see him play live. Alex, when I was living in Los Angeles and he was touring with Il Divo, I went and saw Il Divo on the first night, but then the second night he picked me up in the tour bus and we went and saw Radiohead, and it was like, you know, it was like, shit, this is, you know, I never in a million years dreamt that I would ever go and see him, especially for free. But it was, you know, it's like, to go and see him live was awesome. And I think that goes for me with Pearl Jam, Supergrass, Manic Street Preachers, Elvis Costello, all of these people that I've gone and watched live, Stereophonics. It's like, ultimately, that's the icing on the cake. It's great to have the experience. Like recently, I bought vinyl and I'm listening to vinyl again. So it's a totally different listening experience. You have to stop what you're doing and listen, which music hasn't become that. It becomes part of your daily routine in another way. But it's always the same thing when you go and see a band live that you're into. You took me last year to see Feeder. Absolutely fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
Great venue.
Up.
Yeah,
always
brilliant.
Show up.
Great songs, great players. You know, not a band I'd say I'm really familiar with, but I was there. It was great. The atmosphere was great, and they got
really,
a diehard, brilliant,
really loud.
Yeah, loud, and you know, as it should be.
But then I don't mind saying, you know, 6 months before that we went and saw Embrace, and they were reasonably mediocre.
Well, it just sounded like the record.
Yeah. There was no live atmosphere whatsoever.
Yeah,
it was like,
it was very polished and there was no grit. But Feeder just had that.
What's the wildest audience you've both played to?
Wildest?
Birmingham, Alabama was great, wasn't it? That was a good gig. Do you remember that?
I remember being in Birmingham for like a week. We were there for a week and it was brilliant. I remember just going to a bar and watching a band like the Meters. It was like they were playing Meters numbers and it was just the local bar band. It was like, Jesus Christ, these guys were good.
Yeah.
You know, and they were just set up. There was no stage. They were just set up at one end of the bar. You know, that's the difference between the UK and the States, especially back then, was like over there, you just had amazing musicians playing in tiny little places, probably for $30 each. And it was like, wow, this is serious. Craziest audience.
Like Electrasy did.
Well, actually, the gig that we did in Spokane, that was a really good night. That was a vibey venue. That was a great, that whole, because we were going up there to do that. Is that Northern California? It is, isn't it?
Washington.
So, yeah, north of.
Yes, it's very North California. Yeah. It's called Washington.
And that was just that was a great venue.
Yeah. Was that an old theatre, was it?
Yeah. Just had a lot of good energy.
I remember. Does that buzz you as well? Does that give you the buzz when you go around on tour and you're like, you know, you're going from venue to venue and different venue and different venue? Do you sometimes walk in and go like, what? This is a venue, like
it makes a difference.
Because Alex, you've played a fair few stadiums, I should imagine. Do you get a different vibe off that than, you know, theatre at the back in Birmingham?
Yeah, completely different. I think the biggest gig, there's two. With Sir Tom, we played at the Melbourne Cricket Ground. So that was 100,000.
Yeah, huge.
But that was for the Aussie Rules football final. And we did that with, it was us, Ed Sheeran and Olivia Newton-John. And we didn't get to play with Olivia Newton-John, but Ed Sheeran decided that he wanted to do a duet with Tom. So he donated one of his 3 numbers before the game and said, right, if I play Kiss, will you all come and back me up and I'll bring Tom on and we'll do a duet? And it was like, it didn't mess with our 3 numbers. So it was like, we got to play 4 numbers. So it was like Ed Sheeran, his 3rd number of his little mini set before the game, he just starts playing Kiss, and then after the first verse, he just says, "Right, welcome to the stage, Sir Tom Jones," and then we all just jumped in. And so I have done a gig with Ed Sheeran in front of 100,000. So it's available on YouTube if you want to look at it.
Ali, have you ever played with Ed Sheeran in front of 100,000 people before?
Definitely not. No.
Just twice, just the twice. Yeah.
You've
So that was
played
a big
with
one.
Steve in front of 100 people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So have I. They're all good. They're all good gigs, you know. We did a vineyard tour in Australia. The vineyards weren't ever anywhere near any of the major cities, but they kept putting us up in Sydney and Melbourne, and then you had a 3-hour drive to the gig. It's like, really? Not a closer hotel. I would have had a travel lodge for a night and just 10 minutes to the gig. But there was a couple of hilarious things happened on those. One night, it was absolutely, torrential rain. And obviously the band are undercover, but, under sort of tarpaulin staging. And literally it was a lot of wind and a lot of rain. And I don't know, every sort of 10 minutes or so, when the front bit of tarpaulin had filled up with about a swimming pool's worth of rain, then a big bit of wind would come and literally tip the entire lot on the front 2 or 3 rows. So you'd be sort of playing there, sort of remembering the song, but you're always watching the audience, and every now and again there'd be this swimming pool landing on them, and they're all sort of, oh, fucking hell, and us all pissing ourselves. And another night that was like completely the opposite. It was really hot, but then we started and it was bright sunshine. But by the end of the gig, the stage was literally the only lights for as far as the eye could see. So every bug, moth, you name it, flying insect went, "Oh, look, there's some lights over there. I think we'll go there. That looks good." Anyway, so we're playing, I don't know what we're playing, getting towards the end of the set because it's dark and we're all on in-ears. And I look round and one of the BVs, one of the backing singers, she's at the back of the riser. She's totally scared of moths. It's like proper phobia of moths. So she's just literally screaming down the mic until the front of the house could get her microphone down. But it's still coming through our in-ears. So you're trying to concentrate and you've just got this screaming going on. And it's like, and when we were attacked by all the bugs and the flying insects, I literally had my mouth shut for the whole time because things were landing, just flying straight into your face.
Your bandmate Steve's just messaged me.
Oh yeah.
And asked to ask Alex about water fountains on tour.
Yeah. This is what I say about, I'm glad that not every Tom, Dick and Harry had a video camera back then, because what would generally happen was we always needed content for videos and daily what's going on. And Steve would just say to me, "Right, let's go off and do some filming." And me being the new boy would be like, "All right, come on then." And he'd be like, "Right, walk through that fountain." So there's a video clip of like a really small one. And I'm just sort of walking along. There's a guy sat on a bench and I just sort of casually walk straight through the fountain and then off. And the guy sort of looks up and like, "Huh?" And then there was, I think it was North Virginia. I think it was the gig that we recorded. Federal building. I'm amazed that I didn't get arrested, really. In this day and age, I'm sure I would have done. He said, "Right, get into that fountain." Like one of the big proper American out the front of the local town hall building, and I sort of had to climb up onto the next level into the fountain, and then you sort of get me sort of all triumphant, soaking wet, and then climb back out. There wasn't even any attention, and then obviously we're all the way back to the venue, walked straight into the venue, and I'm sure it was Fuel and Finger 11, and they just sort of looked around at me and just like, "What the fuck have you gone and done today? You idiot." So yeah, Steve, there's when Steve gets all that footage, there's definitely photos. I've got a photo of me in the big fountain somewhere on when Steve used to do digital collages of like the day's activities. There's definitely photos, and they were all taken off stills from the video camera. So yeah, it's all there on
Amazing.
Yeah.
Best tour story. We'll have to wrap up in a minute, but Ali, go on. What's your favourite touring story?
We have to be
Wheelchairs?
careful because there's those. I was going to go from Spokane, but I felt like Alex was like, he's got a family, so
Yeah, we don't need to know about that.
Probably in the book.
definitely his daughter does not need to know about that. But no, we like, just you meet a character. without going into a lot of detail, you make promises to people in your life and new people that you meet and care about that you'll behave because it's an important MTV interview and it's really important. And then you don't sleep for 2 days before it because you go on some adventure with your pal in the band, Peanut Bendy Head in Old Baby. And I'm not going to go into detail, but 72 hours later, you're boarding a plane to fly to the East Coast thinking, what just happened? And it's awesome because it is Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. So it's, I'll say no more, but yeah,
Mate, it's in the book. It's in the book, so don't worry about it.
Well, that's
it. We shared some awesome experiences together.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, like the evening where a certain person ended up in a county jail and then received a bill for an adrenaline shot, which I think is in the book. That was a hilarious night. I mean, ups and downs. It was funny. It was like, oh God, we're gonna all get arrested. Oh God, this is the end of the tour, and then actually, no problem. Next gig.
Yeah, yeah, it is that.
I think just on the way into a conclusion, we'll all have another chat about something else another day. Let's just for a couple minutes, I just want to reflect on like the mini tour last year, because totally different like bag of frogs than 20 odd years ago. What was that like? Just getting back, because you did the one gig the year before, 2 gigs the year before with the guys from Dodgy. Last year you did 10 over 2 weeks or whatever. Was that like a little kind of guilty pleasure, like we're doing it again? How did that feel?
It was brilliant just to be able to stand in a room again and make that noise. It was as good as it ever had been, if not maybe in some respects it was better because, having more stuff on track, it just sounded really, really good. Like you got the best of the record and a live rendition. But yeah, Yeovil was great. And
Linda, Steve's better half, she saw the very first gig and then she came down and saw the very last gig and she was like, blimey, worlds apart. And I think I felt like by the time we got to Exeter, we should have gone on tour there. We could have gone on the road for 6 months because we just hit our stride where it becomes just like second nature, really.
Yeah.
You're not thinking about it. You're not worried about what's going to happen or you just get up there and do it. And that's a great feeling.
Yeah, I think by the end of the 10 shows, from a musical point of view, we could have held our own with virtually anyone, because we do what we do. It's not like if we were, we could play alongside anyone, regardless of what style of music it was. And, it's like, I always remember when we were rehearsing, I think it was when we were doing pre-production for Wired for Dreaming, and we were at Mate's studio in North Hollywood. And we were in one room, and like 2 rooms down, there was Steve Vai and
that's right,
Billy Sheehan. And I can't remember who was on drums. It wasn't anyone that I knew. And they were doing like tapping in unison. And then we were going A, D, D. And the guy that run the place came over and he was like, my God, you guys are way better than those guys. I'd much rather listen to this than that, and it was just really funny. So, I mean, I do think that once we get ourselves up and running, the songs are strong and the performance is sufficiently oomph to present the songs as well as, the 5 of us could do it.
Yeah.
I think.
I agree. I think by the end of the 10, you were absolutely banging. I have to say, my observation, because I was there for most of them, from the beginning ones all the way through, and I filmed a lot of it, obviously. But Weymouth was, I think, from a fan's point of view, probably the most fun.
Yeah.
To watch, because you guys looked like you were having the best fucking time as well in Weymouth, because that was, Chris described it as like a bar from Star Wars.
Yeah. Right.
Which I just thought was wonderful.
You're talking about the audience.
Yeah.
There were some characters in that
the
night.
The whole thing was just crazy.
Yeah.
It was brilliant.
Yeah.
And it kind of played out in the music a little bit as well. Like it was just the energy from a crowd sort of feeds through the performance. It was really, really
was
special.
that the night before Yeovil?
Yeah.
Because I think Yeovil was
really
the best night, just in terms of it was sold out, and lots and lots of people had come down to that hadn't seen each other. So it was a social thing as much as let's go and see the band. So that was really nice. It was like, it was such a nice vibe that evening that everyone was just having a great time. If you could take that on tour, then you'd never want to stop touring.
Do you reckon, just to lead us through to the to a logical conclusion, not this year, but you're going to tour again?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think next summer. I think this summer we want to write songs, get the new album written,
Started.
and sort of get that recording, and then hopefully that'll be done and wrapped up by the fall, 26 summer 20. So maybe do another few gigs, but definitely some of the places we played last year, I'd be very happy to go back to. But we just need to make sure that we take care of the promotion, or we find someone who we know will do a good job. Because like Oxford, Bristol, London, they were all great venues, and Birmingham as well, King's Heath. They were all great venues. They should have all been great gigs, but unfortunately, they just didn't have the numbers like Yeovil and Weymouth.
London was full. London was a full gig, but also you were contending with the Euro final as well.
Oh yeah, well there was that. Yeah.
So it's not all about
2020. 2026. There'll only be the World Cup. No worries.
Yeah. Well, we'll just book it wisely.
Then make sure we got a gig on the night of the final, and then that will guarantee England will get through. So let's make let's make that happen.
We'll get it. We'll book it properly. Yeah. Right, gentlemen. Just let me finish with one quick fire one then. Alex, best gig you've ever been to as a punter?
There's two. Graham Central Station at the Jazz Cafe, 1996. 3 hours of the funkiest shit you've ever heard. And then the second best gig ever, Ali was there, Prince at the Dolphin Theatre in Blackfriars, which is like a 200-300 seater theatre, which was the album launch for Raven to the Joy 2000, I think was what it was called. He put an album out on Arista for Clive.
Awesome.
And we were there in the front row, and he told us all to get up and dance. And do you know what?
We did.
Nice.
Right next to us.
Because he was right there, and he looked at all six of us, as it was then. It was like, we were all like relaxed and very English. It was like, you guys get up, and we were like, oh yes sir, da, 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 we're dancing.
I saw Prince do that residency at the O2.
Oh yeah, I went to that as well. Yeah,
totally different thing than you're describing.
Yeah,
shit, that guy could perform like.
Oh yeah, ridiculous.
In fact, I think I saw him 3 times on that tour because he did like 28 days or whatever. And what was crazy about that is every time we saw him, because it was really easy to get tickets and they were really cheap as well. He did a relatively different set each time I saw him, like jigged it around. Like it wasn't like the same thing 3 times. It was a couple of the songs you'd expect, but he just mixed it up. It was crazy good. Ali, best gig you've ever been to?
I think 1991, Brixton Academy, Pearl Jam. Oof. So between the first and second album. So that was quite a big moment because that was intense.
Yeah.
And then really great gig, March 2000, probably at the Ali Pally and Supergrass. Brilliant. I think they were leading up to doing Glastonbury that year, or was it 20? So it was right when COVID hit. So we went and saw them in March, and then lockdown was two months after that. So they were leading up to, I think they'd spent about a year back together just touring. I'd seen videos of them playing in little bars in Paris, and it was quite shambolic. But when we saw them at the Ali Pally, and that's a great venue as well, they were absolutely kicking ass. Brilliant. Really, really, really good.
Amazing. Saw Marilyn Manson at Ali Pally. That was pretty intense.
Really?
Yeah, that was kind of crazy. That's another story for another day. All right, chaps. Well, look, that was fun, and I want to see you back on tour again very soon. I'm sure the fans out there want to as well. And so we'll say adios.
Adios.
Bye. Bye, Alex. Good to see you, Alex.
Likewise.
Bye, Alex.
See you soon.